At the end of Avengers Endgame, we all saw Tony Stark die on the battlefield. His arc reactor slowly dimmed as Peter and Pepper sat beside him, saying goodbye. Then the scene cuts to a peaceful lakeside funeral, where all the heroes stand in black suits. Pepper releases the original arc reactor into the water, the one engraved with the words, "Proof that Tony Stark has a heart." But think carefully about it. Throughout this entire sequence, there's one thing we never actually see. No coffin, no body, no burial. For a studio like Marvel, that's not a small detail. Normally, they always provide visual closure, especially when such a major character dies. You probably remember Yondu's funeral, where his body was shown, and Loki's death in Infinity War, which made Thor break down in tears. We were even shown Natasha's body after her sacrifice. But Tony Stark, the face of the entire Infinity Saga, had his body intentionally hidden from the audience. That clearly suggests Marvel had future plans connected to him, and those plans are now moving forward with Avengers Doomsday. But how could that happen? Let's break it down. When Tony used all 6 Infinity Stones in his nanogauntlet and snapped his fingers, it wasn't just a technological stunt. He was channeling the most dangerous energies in the universe directly through his human body. Hulk himself explained that the Infinity Stones release massive amounts of gamma radiation, which is exactly why Hulk was chosen to perform the snap earlier. Tony's body was never designed to handle that kind of power, and neither was his suit. His arc reactor essentially acted like a lightning rod, absorbing as much energy as possible so Tony wouldn't die instantly and could at least survive for a few final moments to speak with Pepper. The damage to his face was only the visible part. Internally, his organs were essentially cooked by the radiation, which is why we could see the severe physical effects spreading across his body. Scientifically speaking, after Tony's death, his body would have become a walking biohazard. This leads to the first logical conclusion. If a body has absorbed that much radiation, it cannot simply be buried normally because it would be dangerous and impractical. Theoretically, burying such a radioactive body underground could create long-term environmental and human safety risks. That's why the safest option in such a scenario would be immediate cremation inside a sealed environment, ensuring any radioactive remains stay contained. From here, a very poetic theory emerges. Tony's ashes may have been placed beneath the arc reactor that Pepper released into the lake. In other words, the device wasn't just symbolic. It may have literally become Tony Stark's final resting place. This also explains why the funeral sequence felt so minimalistic. There was no coffin, no elaborate ceremony, just the arc reactor and the people who truly mattered to him. But this theory also creates a major problem. The MCU consistently follows a pattern where governments and secret organizations never allow powerful assets to simply disappear. Whether it's Steve Rogers' body, Hulk's blood, or the DNA of enhanced individuals, these things are treated like gold for Black Ops-level research. Tony Stark's body would be even more valuable because he was the only human capable of wielding all 6 Infinity Stones, even if only for a few seconds. His DNA would likely have mutated due to the immense energy exposure, while his nanotech suit and arc reactor may have fused with his body at a molecular level. Because of this, it's possible that after the battle, Tony's body was secretly transferred to a heavily classified facility, where organizations like S.W.O.R.D or some future agency have been studying it ever since. By refusing to show the coffin during the funeral, Marvel intentionally created a mystery from the audience's perspective. In fact, even the Russo brothers avoided giving a direct answer when questioned about it. So the theory becomes this: Tony's body may still exist somewhere in a lab, under observation. But even that might be too straightforward for the MCU. And that's where the real dark twist begins: Dr. Doom. Robert Downey Jr. is officially returning to the MCU as Dr. Doom in Avengers Doomsday. Naturally, fans are asking the obvious question: how can the same face belong to a completely different character, especially one hidden behind such a heavy mask? Is all of this just a coincidence, or a deliberate misdirection by Marvel? The comics already give us several examples where Dr. Doom transfers his consciousness into someone else's body, including dead bodies. If the MCU follows that storyline, then a very dark possibility opens up here. Tony Stark's corpse, still carrying the residual effects of the Infinity Stones, could be used as a vessel. That vessel could belong to Doom himself, or perhaps another villain entirely. We'll only know for sure when the movie releases. But Doctor Strange, in the multiverse of madness, already established that dream walking exists. A person's consciousness can operate through another body from a different universe, even through a dead body. So imagine this scenario. After the battle, Tony's body was secretly secured by S.W.O.R.D. or Wakanda, where it was carefully preserved. Maybe it was stored using Wakandan cryotechnology, similar to the system that once preserved Bucky, or perhaps held together through some kind of mystical method. Now, picture Doctor Doom, coming from another universe, dreamwalking into Tony Stark's preserved corpse and possessing it. That would explain why Doom wears a mask, because the face underneath is damaged, burned, and decaying. At the same time, it perfectly explains why Robert Downey Jr.'s face is still being used, because technically it would still be Tony's body. This also answers the biggest mystery: why Marvel never showed Tony's burial. His body may never have been buried at all. Instead, it may have been secretly preserved for research, or for this exact purpose. Something very similar has already happened in Marvel Comics, especially in stories like What If, Iron Man, Demon in Armor, where Doctor Doom transfers his consciousness into Tony Stark's body and uses Tony's resources for his own goals. The MCU could adapt this idea, not as a what-if story, but as part of the main continuity itself. The Russo brothers also once confirmed that they originally filmed a scene where, after the snap, Tony entered the S.W.O.R.D, a metaphysical realm, and met an older version of Morgan Stark, similar to how Thanos met young Gamora after his snap. Although the scene was eventually cut, it confirmed one important thing: the S.W.O.R.D concept officially exists in MCU canon. That opens up another possibility. Tony's consciousness, or soul, may still be connected to the Soul Stone somewhere beyond reality, while only an empty body remains on Earth. And once the soul and body become separated, the body itself becomes vulnerable, something that could be exploited by villainous scientists, multiversal variants, or Doctor Doom himself. So, in my opinion, the most plausible scenario is this. Immediately after the battle, the Avengers secured Tony's body. But once they realized it had been heavily mutated by radiation exposure, they handed it over to a controlled government facility instead of arranging a normal burial. For the public and the heroes, the arc reactor at the lake became the symbolic funeral we witnessed. But behind the scenes, Tony's physical body was secretly preserved so its DNA, tissues, and energy-altered biology could someday be studied or weaponized. Then, a Doctor Doom from another universe either transfers his consciousness into that body or dreamwalks into it, effectively using Tony Stark's corpse as his new vessel. That's why we see Robert Downey Jr.'s face as Doctor Doom. This theory solves three major things at once. First, it gives the audience emotional closure through Tony's funeral scene. Second, it adds scientific realism, because a heavily irradiated body couldn't realistically be handled in a normal way. And third, it creates a perfect pathway for future storytelling inside the MCU. So guys, by now you probably understand the theory. Tony Stark's body may never have truly rested underground. Emotionally, he already received his farewell at the lake beside the arc reactor. But inside the MCU, his physical remains could still be locked away somewhere, hidden in a lab or controlled by a villain. And when Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom finally removes his mask, we may discover the horrifying truth of how Tony Stark became Doctor Doom. So what do you think? When Avengers, Doomsday finally releases, do you think we'll see Tony Stark's dead body return in some form or not? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know whether you agree with the theory I explained in this video or not. I'll see you again in the next video with a brand new topic. Until then,